In this tutorial, we will cover how to use the validation multiple node. This node takes a set of columns selected by the user and checks that each value in the columns meet criteria also set by the user. This is a good way to validate that your data does not contain erroneous or extraneous data. Here in the configuration pane, the first option that we use is the validation successful percentage. This is the percentage that will set the threshold for what is considered a successful validation. Next, we can add to our variables list. This we can do using the green plus sign on the left-hand side of the configuration pane. We can also remove from our variables list using the minus sign on the right-hand side of the configuration pane. Next, we can add columns to our variables list. Once we have selected the columns that we want to validate, we then need to select a function for each column. The first category of functions are ones that deal with numerical variables. The next set are ones that deal with null values. And the final set are to check the format of the data in each column, whether it's a valid email address or whether it's a valid date format. If we have selected one of the functions that deals with numerical variables, we then need to set threshold values. If we want to add multiple functions to validate a particular column, we can then use conditions and add multiple functions. Now we can execute this workflow. Here in the execution page, we can see that after the validation multiple node executes, that it outputs the total number of records, the percentage of bad records, and the percentage of good records. This is a good way to get a good overview of how much cleaning needs to be done to this data. After we print out the data, we can see that at the end, there have been two new columns added, the validation result and the validation result reason. If the validation result contains a 1, that means that that particular row was validated and has been successful. However, if this row contains a 0, then the validation was unsuccessful. And there will be a validation result reason, such as this was not a correct date format. Thank you for listening.